It all started like a dream. I remember the first time I met him, he smiled, and it felt like the world stopped for a moment. There was something in his eyes, a spark that made me believe he was different, that he was genuine. Every word he spoke, every laugh we shared, felt like it was meant just for me. I never imagined that behind that charming smile, a web of lies was already forming. At first, it was small things, little inconsistencies I could brush off. Oh, maybe he's just busy, I thought. But over time, the cracks grew, and I started noticing the patterns. Friends would mention things I didn't know, social media posts didn't match his stories, and the way he sometimes avoided questions felt off. I wanted to ignore it. I wanted to believe him. He made me feel alive, seen, and important. I never thought the person I trusted the most could be hiding such a twisted truth. He wasn't just lying, he was performing a role, crafting a life that wasn't real, and I was trapped in his carefully staged reality. But I didn't see it clearly yet. I was in too deep, laughing at his jokes, sharing dreams, imagining a future that he had no intention of sharing with me honestly. I didn't know that every moment of trust one offered him was slowly being manipulated to serve his own hidden agenda. I remember the night everything changed. I was scrolling through my phone when I noticed something, a message that didn't make sense. It wasn't meant for me, but it was there, glowing on his screen. The words cut me like ice, a secret I was never supposed to know, a life I was never supposed to see. And in that instant, the man I thought I loved became a stranger, a master of deception who had fooled me completely. I felt my heart split into pieces, but there was a strange clarity that came with that pain. I realized that if I let this destroy me, it would only give him more power. So I decided to watch, to observe, and to understand who he really was. I needed to see the truth with my own eyes before confronting him, or before letting him destroy everything I had worked for. He had built a perfect image. On social media, at work, around friends, he was flawless. Polite, charismatic, generous, someone people admired. But behind that mask, the real person was hidden. And little by little, I started seeing the signs. It started with small contradictions. Stories he told me about his past didn't match what I overheard from mutual friends. He claimed to have a stable career, but I noticed inconsistencies in his schedule. He said he was saving for the future, but there were strange purchases, mysterious trips, and late-night calls he refused to explain. I began to feel a growing unease, but still, every instinct told me he loved me, so I held on. But love can blind you. And lies, they can feel like truth if you want to believe them. He was a master at reading people, at saying exactly what you needed to hear. Every compliment, every gentle touch, every late-night "I'm thinking of you" text felt authentic, but it was all calculated. The turning point came when I accidentally stumbled upon evidence of his double life. Photos, conversations, even plans I was never supposed to see, they painted a picture that didn't match the man I thought I knew. My world tilted. The person I trusted had been performing, manipulating, and deceiving not just me, but everyone around him. I felt anger, disbelief, and heartbreak all at once. How could someone be so convincing that even my instincts didn't warn me? How had I been blind for so long? I started retracing every moment, every word, every shared secret, and realized that nearly everything had been a lie. I didn't confront him immediately. Not because I was afraid, but because I wanted the full picture. I needed to understand the extent of the deception. I watched, I listened, I collected every inconsistency, every clue. And finally, one night, I asked him directly. "I saw something," I said quietly. My voice trembled, but my eyes were steady. "Why are you lying to me?" He froze. His smile faltered for the first time in months. And then, the mask slipped, not completely, but enough for me to see cracks in his carefully constructed persona. He tried to deflect, to twist the situation, to make me feel like I was overreacting. "You're imagining things," he said. "You don't understand the full context." But I did. I had spent weeks piecing together the fragments, watching his behavior, and slowly building the truth. And finally, the facade that had seemed so perfect began to crumble in front of me. The conversation ended with him storming out, leaving a silence that felt heavier than any argument. But in that silence, I felt something powerful: clarity. I realized I had the chance to reclaim my life, to take control of the narrative he had been writing without my knowledge. And that realization sparked a fire inside me, a fire that would lead me to the next chapter: exposure and justice. After that night, nothing felt the same. He still texted me like everything was normal. Still used the same soft words. Still said, "I miss you." But now, every message felt fake. I stopped reacting. I stopped explaining myself. I stopped chasing answers from his mouth. Instead, I started watching. I became quiet. Not weak quiet. Dangerously calm quiet. I noticed things I had ignored before. The way he always turned his phone face down. The way his stories changed depending on who was listening. The way his work trips never added up. The way he avoided introducing me to certain people. So I started connecting dots. I checked old posts. Old photos. Old comments. And what I found made my stomach twist. He wasn't living one life. He was living three. To his family, he was the perfect son. To his friends, the hustler with big dreams. To me, the loyal man who wanted a future. But behind all of it, he was hiding something darker. Something he never planned for me to see. One night, I saw his name pop up in a place it shouldn't have. A business page that wasn't his. A woman tagging him in a photo, too close to ignore. My hands were shaking when I opened it. And there it was. A whole other version of him. Different name. Different job. Different story. But the same face. My heart didn't break. It went cold. Because now I understood something important. He didn't just lie once. He designed lies. And people like that don't stop on their own. They only stop when someone exposes them. So I made a choice. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to confront him with emotions. I was going to outthink him. Slowly. Quietly. And completely. Because when someone lies to your face for months, the truth doesn't just deserve to come out. It deserves to come out. In a way they never see coming. And that was when I started planning. Not revenge driven by anger. But justice built with patience. And I promise you this. By the time he realized what was happening, his real life was already falling apart behind him. And he didn't even know it yet. My name is Maya. And this is the part of my life where love stopped being sweet. And started being dangerous. After that night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was scared. But because my mind wouldn't stop working. Every word he had ever said. Every promise. Every "I swear on my life." All of it started replaying in my head like a broken movie. And suddenly, the story made sense. Not the love story. The lie story. I stopped asking him questions. I stopped reacting to his messages. I stopped showing emotions. Instead, I started collecting truth. Because when someone lies to you for long enough, the truth doesn't come in one big explosion. It comes in pieces. And every piece hurts more than the last. One night, while he was on a work call, I quietly opened my laptop. Not to stalk him, but to study him. His digital life. His public image. His hidden patterns. And that's when I saw it. A profile. With his face. But not his name. Different username. Different bio. Different story. But the same eyes. My heart stopped. I clicked. And what I saw was a life I was never supposed to know about. Photos of him with people I had never seen. Trips he never told me about. A woman standing way too close. A smile I had only seen when he was with me. But here he was. Smiling the same way. For someone else. My hands went cold. Not shaking. Not crying. Just cold. Because now I understood. He wasn't confused. He was careful. He didn't make mistakes. He made designs. And I was just one part of his design. I kept scrolling. More lies. More secrets. More proof. Different city. Different job. Different dreams. In my world, he was building a future with me. In another world, he was already living it with someone else. And the worst part? He looked proud. Not guilty. Not nervous. Proud. That's when something inside me changed. Not my heart. My power. I closed the laptop. And for the first time in months, I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because I finally saw him clearly. And when you see someone clearly, you stop loving them. You start outsmarting them. From that moment on, every word he said, I translated. When he said, I miss you, I heard, I'm controlling you. When he said, I'm busy, I heard, I'm hiding something. When he said, trust me, I heard, don't look too close. So I did the opposite. I looked closer than ever. I saved screenshots. I noted dates. I connected names. I followed patterns. I wasn't spying. I was building a case. And slowly, his perfect world started cracking. Not in front of him. Behind him. And he had no idea. Because the best revenge is the one where the person keeps smiling, while their truth is already walking toward them. I still met him. Still laughed. Still acted normal. But inside, I was 10 steps ahead. And he was still lying to my face. Like I didn't already know everything. And that was the part that hurt the most. Not that he lied. But that he looked into my eyes while doing it. And that's when I made my final decision. I wasn't going to expose him in anger. I was going to expose him. In a way that would leave him speechless. Because when a liar loses their story, they lose their power. And his story was about to end. After I discovered his double life, I didn't rush. I didn't explode. I didn't cry in front of him. Because when someone is lying to you every day, your silence becomes your greatest weapon. I started playing my role perfectly. The loving girlfriend. The trusting partner. The woman who believed every word. And he believed that. He had no idea I was already 2 moves ahead. Every time he said, "Babe, I'm going out of town for work," I smiled and said, "Be safe." But inside, I was thinking. Backhand index pointing right, which life are you going to live this time? I let him talk. I let him lie. I let him dig his own hole. Because liars always get comfortable. And when they get comfortable, they get careless. One night, he told me he had a big meeting coming up. Something important. Something that could change his future. That was my opening. I leaned in. I looked excited. I played interested. What kind of meeting? I asked softly. He smiled. That same fake confident smile. You'll see soon, he said. And that's when I knew. Whatever he was planning, I was going to be there too. Just not in the way he expected. So I started asking the right questions. Not too many. Not too obvious. Just enough to let him talk. Where? With who? What time? And he answered. Because liars love hearing themselves talk. And every answer he gave me, I saved. Not in my phone. In my memory. Then I started building the trap. Not with anger. With intelligence. I contacted people he thought I didn't know. I connected dots he thought were hidden. I followed the trail of his other life. And slowly, his secret world started making sense. The woman in those photos. The city he kept visiting. The business he never mentioned. It wasn't random. It was organized. And so was my response. I didn't want to just expose him. I wanted to corner him. To put him in a moment where every lie would collapse at once. Where he wouldn't be able to talk his way out. Where his real life would stand in front of everyone. Naked and undeniable. So I waited. I waited for the perfect moment. And then, it came. He invited me to an event. A public one. With people from his main life. And he said something that made my blood run cold. You'll finally meet everyone important to me. I smiled. But inside, I thought. Backhand index pointing right, good. So will they. Because what he didn't know was that I had already met them. Not in person. But through his lies. And they were about to meet the real him too. I picked my outfit carefully that night. Not sexy. Not flashy. Powerful. Because I wasn't going there as his girl. I was going there as his truth. And when I walked into that room, he had no idea that the woman holding his hand was about to destroy his story. Without raising her voice. And that's the thing about traps. They don't look like danger. They look like love. I remember that night like it was a movie. The lights were soft, the music low, everyone chatting, laughing, living in their little bubbles of comfort. And there he was. Ryan, smiling, confident, unaware that his life was about to shift forever. I walked in, head held high, heart steady, and the first thing I noticed was how comfortable he was. He didn't expect me to be aware of his other world. He didn't expect me to see through him. He didn't expect anyone to. I made my way through the crowd, letting him think I was just his loyal girlfriend, admiring his charm, laughing at his jokes. And he fell for it, like always. Then, one by one, I started introducing accidental facts. Little mentions he couldn't explain, names he hadn't told me about, events he hadn't included in his perfect story. Ryan, I met Sophia the other day, she mentioned your project in LA, I said casually, letting my words hang in the air like smoke. He froze. Just for a split second. Not enough to panic anyone else, but enough for me to see it, the flicker of fear in his eyes. I smiled, silently. The seed was planted. Then I did something even bolder. I whispered to one of his colleagues, someone from his main life, about a detail only I could know. Oh, by the way, Ryan didn't mention he was visiting New York last month. You should have seen his face. Eyes widening. Hands twitching. A small, fake laugh that didn't reach his eyes. It was beautiful. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't exposing him publicly, yet. I was letting his own lies do the work. Then I sent a message to the other woman in his secret life. Just a simple, hey, how are you? Nothing threatening. Nothing revealing. Just a reminder that she existed. I watched Ryan's posture change. Watched his confident smile falter. Watched him feel cornered without knowing why. And that was the moment I realized. The power wasn't mine. The power was truth itself. Because liars always think they are safe. Until they see how fragile their world is. The night went on. And I kept dropping little hints. Nothing dramatic. Nothing loud. Just enough to make him sweat, to make him question, to make him wonder who knew. And all the while, I stayed calm. Smiling. Polite. Loving. The woman he thought he controlled was the one controlling every heartbeat of this night. By the end of the evening, he looked exhausted. Not physically. Emotionally. Mentally. His mask was slipping. And I knew, deep down, that once he returned home, the reality of his double life would start to haunt him. And that, my friends, is when the real story began. Because Maya doesn't just expose lies. She lets them destroy themselves. The night Ryan's lies met reality was the night everything changed. I had waited months for this moment. Not out of revenge fueled by anger, but revenge guided by justice. I wasn't the girl who cried in secret anymore. I was Maya, the woman who saw everything clearly. Who planned every move, who knew exactly how to make the truth hit like a storm. It started subtly. Small whispers to people in his circle, colleagues, friends, even family. Little facts. Inconsistencies. Evidence that only someone paying attention would notice. And slowly, they started noticing. He walked into a room, thinking he was untouchable. Thinking his mask was flawless. And I watched as cracks appeared in real time. First, the colleagues. They exchanged glances over things he had claimed. Things that didn't make sense. He laughed nervously, trying to cover. But it was too late. Then, the woman from his other life. I confronted her calmly. Showed her proof, without drama, without shouting. She paused. Realized how carefully he had woven his lies. And that he was lying to both of us at the same time. And then, the final moment, his family. I reached out to them privately. Shared stories, screenshots, timelines. The perfect son, the perfect image, the flawless mask. Was unraveling in front of him. Ryan didn't know it yet. But by the time he returned home that night, everything he had built would be exposed. And he walked in. Expecting the same old routine. Expecting me to smile, to reassure, to forgive. Instead, he saw their messages. He saw her face, shocked and hurt. He saw his mother looking at him with disbelief. He saw friends whispering, comparing notes, connecting dots. He saw his entire world cracking in a way no apology could fix. He froze. His confident smile, his charm. Gone. Speechless. And in that silence, I stepped forward. Not angry. Not yelling. Just calm, measured, unstoppable. Ryan, I said softly. You lied to my face for months. And everyone who matters now knows the truth. The room went quiet. Even his breath seemed to hold itself. I let it linger. Let the moment settle. Because sometimes, you don't need to fight a liar. You let the truth do the work. And the look on his face. The way his eyes darted, trying to find a way out. That was my final reward. Everything he had hidden. Everything he had thought was safe. Was now public, undeniable, collapsing in front of him. And for the first time, he realized something important. Trust is fragile. Lies destroy faster than any argument. And manipulation always comes with a price. I walked away that night knowing I hadn't just survived his lies. I had ended them. Cleanly. Completely. Powerfully. And the lesson? Never ignore your instincts. Never let charm blind you. And remember this. A liar can fool you for a moment. But the truth always finds its way. Because in the end, he lied to my face. And the ending exposed his real life. The night of exposure had passed. But the echo of it lingered everywhere. Ryan. Or should I even call him that anymore? He was no longer the man I thought I knew. People looked at him differently. His friends, his family, even strangers who had heard whispers. They could see the cracks. And I felt lighter than I had in months. No anger. No confusion. Just clarity. I watched from a distance. Not to spy. Not to manipulate. Just to see the truth settle. He called me. Several times. Desperate, panicked, fumbling over excuses. Maya, wait, let me explain. But his voice. It sounded smaller. Weak. The confident man had vanished. I didn't answer. Because I didn't need to. He had already seen what his lies had created. He had already felt the weight of every secret. And now, he was facing reality alone. I spent that night thinking about how people like him operate. How charm, deceit, and confidence can fool even the smartest of hearts. But I also thought about power. The power of knowledge. The power of patience. The power of letting someone's own lies destroy them. I realized something important. You don't need to fight a liar. You just need to watch. Wait. And let the truth speak. And speak it did. The next morning, I got messages. From people I hadn't expected. Friends confirming what they had suspected. Family members expressing relief that someone had finally seen the truth. Even the woman from his other life, grateful that I approached her calmly. And not with hate. For the first time I understood what victory felt like. Not revenge. Not humiliation. Not anger. But freedom. Freedom from lies. Freedom from manipulation. Freedom from someone who pretended to care but only cared about control. And as I sipped my coffee that morning, I smiled quietly to myself. Ryan was gone. The life he tried to hide had collapsed around him. And I was standing taller than ever. But there was a lesson in all of this. A lesson I promised myself I would never forget. Trust your instincts. Pay attention to details. And always remember. People can lie to your face, but truth always finds its way. It's been weeks since everything fell apart. Ryan, the man I once thought was perfect, is now just a name. A story. A lesson. And me? I am Maya. Stronger. Wiser. And finally, at peace. I think about the journey sometimes, how it started with love. How it spiraled into deception. And how I had to watch everything I trusted unravel. But I don't regret a moment. Because every piece of pain taught me something invaluable. I learned that charm can be a weapon. That people can be masters of manipulation. And even those we trust the most can hide entire lives. But I also learned this. Your strength lies in clarity. In patience. In knowing when to act, and when to wait. I didn't humiliate Ryan. I didn't yell. I didn't create chaos. I let the truth do it for me. And that is the most powerful kind of justice. Sometimes, the world tries to blind us with appearances. It wants us to believe the lie. To trust the mask. But deep down, our instincts know the truth. Our heart knows when something feels off. And if we listen, we can protect ourselves before the damage becomes permanent. I'm sharing this story not because I want revenge, but because I want someone else to understand. Trust your instincts. Observe carefully. And never let someone's lies define your reality. Ryan's story ended with exposure. But my story continues. And I walk forward, free from lies, free from manipulation, and free from fear. Because in the end, the real power is not in uncovering lies. It's in reclaiming yourself. And that is what I did. I am Maya. I saw the truth. I let it unfold. And I survived stronger than ever. Lesson learned. A liar may lie to your face. But the truth always finds a way to be heard. It's been weeks since everything fell apart. Ryan, the man I once thought was perfect, is now just a name. A story. A lesson. And me? I am Maya. Stronger. Wiser. And finally, at peace. I think about the journey sometimes, how it started with love. How it spiraled into deception. And how I had to watch everything I trusted unravel. But I don't regret a moment. Because every piece of pain taught me something invaluable. I learned that charm can be a weapon. That people can be masters of manipulation. And even those we trust the most can hide entire lives. But I also learned this. Your strength lies in clarity. In patience. In knowing when to act, and when to wait. I didn't humiliate Ryan. I didn't yell. I didn't create chaos. I let the truth do it for me. And that is the most powerful kind of justice. Sometimes, the world tries to blind us with appearances. It wants us to believe the lie. To trust the mask. But deep down, our instincts know the truth. Our heart knows when something feels off. And if we listen, we can protect ourselves before the damage becomes permanent. I'm sharing this story not because I want revenge, but because I want someone else to understand. Trust your instincts. Observe carefully. And never let someone's lies define your reality. Ryan's story ended with exposure. But my story continues. And I walk forward, free from lies, free from manipulation, and free from fear. Because in the end, the real power is not in uncovering lies. It's in reclaiming yourself. And that is what I did. I am Maya. I saw the truth. I let it unfold. And I survived stronger than ever. Lesson learned. A liar may lie to your face. But the truth always finds a way to be heard. Even after Ryan's world started crumbling. I knew the story wasn't fully over. Liars like him don't just vanish. They linger in shadows. They twist, manipulate, and plan their next move. So I stayed alert. Careful. Not paranoid, just aware. Every call he made, every text. I analyzed. I noticed patterns he thought I couldn't see. Little phrases, half-truths, things that repeated. And I realized, he wasn't just hiding from me. He was plotting a comeback. That's when I decided. If he wants shadows, I'll bring light. If he thinks he can play me again, he'll have to face every truth he tried to bury. I reached out to everyone he had tried to fool. Friends, colleagues, the other woman, even distant relatives. I didn't confront them with anger. I didn't need to. I shared evidence calmly, clearly, systematically. And slowly, he started realizing that every move he made, every lie he whispered, every false story he built, was being tracked. I even left subtle hints for him to notice. Not threats. Not confrontations. Just quiet, invisible reminders that someone was always watching. The beauty of it? He couldn't control the truth anymore. No charm, no lie, no manipulation could save him. And that's when I felt it. The real power wasn't in exposing him in one dramatic moment. It was in the slow, relentless clarity. In letting him see how small, fragile, and empty his lies had become. He tried reaching out again. This time with apologies, excuses, desperate attempts to reconnect. But I wasn't the girl who believed anymore. I was Maya. And Maya doesn't get fooled twice. He had shadows in his life. And I became the sunlight. Calm, steady, illuminating everything he tried to hide. That night, as I sat alone, reflecting, I realized. People like him thrive in darkness. But the moment you let light in, even the smallest truth, the whole house of lies starts to collapse. And that, my friends, is the power of clarity. The power of patience. The power of observing and acting with precision. Because the best revenge is not loud. Not messy. Not dramatic. It's clean. Calculated. Unstoppable. and Ryan, he was about to feel it fully. By now, everything was in place. Months of observation, patience, and subtle maneuvers had led to this moment. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was directing. I reached out to his colleagues with facts only I knew. I contacted his family with quiet evidence. I made sure everyone who mattered knew exactly who Ryan really was. And the best part? He had no idea. I kept meeting him, speaking with him, laughing with him. All while the trap quietly closed around him. He thought he could charm his way out. He thought the truth could be hidden forever. But truth, like gravity, always finds a way. That night, I arranged a casual dinner. Not fancy. Not dramatic. Just us. And a few friends who would unknowingly witness the collapse. Ryan was smiling, confident, unaware. He thought he controlled the room. He didn't. Every glance, every subtle question I dropped, every mention of people and events he had hidden, was like a slow-acting poison. And I watched. Quietly. Carefully. Knowing that soon, the full weight of his lies would hit him all at once. The night came. The room was alive with chatter, but Ryan felt it. The undercurrent of awareness he couldn't place. I started talking to the people around him. Names, places, events, details he had never told them. Little truths that didn't add up to his stories. He froze. Not immediately, not for everyone. But I saw it. That slight tremor in his hands, the hesitation in his voice, the flicker in his eyes. I leaned in, voice calm, almost gentle. Ryan, it's all coming together now, isn't it? He tried to laugh it off. Tried to charm. Tried to redirect. But it was too late. The people around him were seeing the pieces of his life collide. The truths he had hidden for months. Exposed quietly but undeniably. The woman from his other life was there. And when our eyes met, no words were needed. She knew. Everyone knew. Ryan's smile vanished. Confidence crumbled. Pride shattered. And for the first time, he was completely silent. No words. No excuses. No lies. Just the cold, crushing realization that every moment of deception, every lie to my face, every manipulated truth, had finally caught up with him. I stepped back, calm, collected, feeling nothing but clarity and relief. Because this wasn't revenge. It was justice served quietly, perfectly, and irrevocably. And the moral was clear. Lies can fool for a moment. Deception can charm and manipulate. But truth always has its moment to shine. Ryan's world was collapsing. Mine? I was free. Stronger. And finally, at peace. Even after Ryan's exposure, the ripple effect was far from over. People he had fooled were connecting the dots. Colleagues whispered. Friends exchanged shocked glances. Family members realized just how carefully he had controlled his narrative. And Maya. I watched it all unfold like a slow-motion scene. It wasn't enough for me that he faced consequences. I wanted the truth to breathe, to settle into every corner he had tried to hide it from. Every casual comment I dropped at gatherings, every subtle reminder of things only he knew. Let the whispers grow louder. And Ryan? He was watching helplessly. Trying to patch cracks with excuses. Trying to charm his way out of the collapse. But charm only works when people believe in lies. And no one did anymore. Just when I thought it was over, I noticed he wasn't fully gone. Liars like him. They don't disappear quietly. They lurk in shadows. Looking for a chance to reclaim control. I started noticing strange texts. Anonymous calls. Hints that someone else might get caught in his web. I realized I couldn't let him regain power. Not now. Not ever. So I stayed ahead. Analyzing every move. Planning every encounter. Watching every pattern. Patience, clarity, and observation became my weapons. And slowly, I realized something vital. The best protection against deception is strength in yourself. By now, Ryan's world was shrinking. He had no lies left to tell. No charm to hide behind. No networks untouched by truth. And I, Maya, became the silent force ensuring that every hidden detail surfaced at the right time. Each meeting I attended, each conversation I had, was a thread in a web. And slowly, without anyone noticing, that web wrapped around him. I didn't have to speak loudly. I didn't have to create chaos. I just let the truth move naturally. And by the time he realized it, the trap had already closed. His double life, carefully built over months, was now transparent to everyone who mattered. For the first time, he felt the full weight of what it meant to lie. Not just to me, but to everyone around him. The days that followed were quiet, but powerful. Ryan's influence, control, and lies had evaporated. People respected the truth. People saw my strength. And I reclaimed my life. I reflected on the journey. The anger, the sadness, the betrayal. It all led to clarity. I realized. Trust your instincts. Observe carefully. Let the truth take its course. And never underestimate your own strength. Ryan's world had collapsed. Mine had flourished. And the final lesson was clear. You can survive lies, manipulation, and betrayal. And come out stronger, wiser, and free. Because in the end, the liar may walk in shadows. But the truth always shines. Even when the world seemed calm, I felt it. The shadows of his lies still hovering. Ryan, or the man I had once trusted, was not someone who gave up easily. He had spent months weaving deception. And people like him always think they have a second chance. That night, I stayed awake, replaying conversations, texts, emails. Anything that could hint at what he might do next. Because one thing was clear. When a liar senses exposure, they become dangerous, clever, unpredictable. I saw patterns he had left behind, tiny traces of his double life. Things he thought no one would notice. But I noticed. And that's when a chilling thought hit me. If he wanted to strike back, he could. And I had to be ready. I decided to move methodically, quietly. Not aggressively. Not confrontationally. But smartly. I contacted people who had been indirectly involved. People who didn't know the full story but could be subtle witnesses. And slowly, the web tightened. Every hidden connection. Every unspoken secret. Every shadow he had left behind was now part of the trap. I wasn't just waiting. I was setting the stage. Because the best part of suspense is making someone think they have control, when in reality, they are walking straight into the truth. That night, I sent him a text. Are you sure everything is as perfect as it seems? He didn't reply immediately. And that, silence, was my first victory. Days passed, and the tension escalated. Ryan started noticing things. Small things. Questions from people who shouldn't even know. Messages that hinted someone was watching. Eyes that seemed to know more than he realized. He tried to charm, to explain, to mislead. But I wasn't listening anymore. I didn't react anymore. Instead, I observed. Every twitch. Every hesitation. Every word carefully chosen. And that's when the suspense hit its peak. One evening, he called me urgently. Maya, we need to talk. It's important. I agreed. Not because I was afraid. Not because I wanted reconciliation. But because I had a plan. I chose the location carefully, a neutral space. With witnesses hidden. Just enough to let his world start crumbling naturally. When he arrived, he looked confident. But I could see the cracks in his facade. The overpracticed smile. The slightly shaking hands. The way he avoided my eyes. I dropped subtle hints about his double life. About things only I knew. About the people he thought he could manipulate. His eyes widened. His calm vanished. And in that quiet moment, I realized. He finally understood the magnitude of his exposure. And I didn't have to say much more. Because suspense isn't about words. It's about timing, observation, and letting someone feel their own guilt unfold. The final moment arrived. I orchestrated a casual gathering. Friends, family, colleagues, everyone he had tried to impress with lies. Nothing dramatic. Just normal. And slowly, as conversations flowed, I let truth leak quietly. Little facts. Timelines he couldn't explain. Messages, photos, tiny inconsistencies. All adding up. His confident demeanor started to crumble. Not dramatically. Not in a scene. But in real, unspoken ways. People looked at him differently. Some whispered. Some exchanged knowing glances. And he? He realized it all. Ryan tried to spin it. Tried to charm. Tried to manipulate the moment. But the web had closed. And he was trapped by his own lies. I watched quietly. No shouting. No accusations. Just calm, measured observation. Every lie he told. Every story he built. Every truth he ignored. Was now visible to everyone he wanted to impress. And in that silence I felt an indescribable power. Not revenge. Not anger. Not hatred. Just clarity. Freedom. Strength. He had lied to my face. And the ending had finally exposed his real life. The lesson was clear. A liar can charm and manipulate for a moment. But the truth always finds its way, inevitably, and leaves no shadow behind. And that was my final victory. Even after Ryan's world began to crack, I knew the final victory required patience. Power isn't loud. It isn't visible in anger or confrontation. True power is quiet. Every move I made was calculated. Every word I said, measured. Every encounter I allowed, intentional. I observed his interactions like a chess player. Who would he trust next? Who was still unaware? What story was he telling them? I dropped small hints, casual, almost accidental. I heard someone mention your New York trip. Oh, that's interesting, didn't know you had connections there. He froze. He laughed nervously. But I saw it. The tiny crack in his armor. Suspense hung in the air. Like a storm you know is coming. And Ryan, he had no idea I was the calm before the storm. The whispers spread slowly. Friends compared stories. Colleagues connected dots he thought were invisible. And the more he tried to control the narrative, the faster the trap closed. Every lie he had told, every promise he had broken, was now becoming the chains of his exposure. Finally, the moment came. A gathering. Not too formal. Not staged. Just enough people to witness the truth unfold naturally. Ryan entered the room, confidence rehearsed, charm polished. But I could see the hesitation in his eyes. I started casually dropping details. Small mentions. Facts he had hidden. Timelines only I knew. People around him started noticing. Glances exchanged. Eyebrows raised. And slowly, he began to realize. I am exposed. He tried to talk, charm, explain. But the room had shifted. His lies were powerless. Every word he said was matched by evidence, silent observations, and the weight of truth. I kept my tone calm. Measured. Almost gentle. Because suspense isn't created by noise. It's created by letting the tension build and the truth silently dominate. He felt it. And the more he tried to regain control, the deeper he sank. This was the edge of collapse. And I, Maya, was ready to let it fall. Then it happened. A casual mention, a photo, a timeline. And the domino effect began. People connected dots he thought hidden. Questions came faster than he could answer. His confident demeanor shattered, layer by layer. The woman from his other life was there, silent, observing. Family members exchanged glances that pierced through his ego. Colleagues whispered quietly, revealing details he had hidden. And Ryan. He realized fully, finally, that his entire life of lies was crumbling around him. He tried, one last time, to charm, to explain, to manipulate. But words failed. Excuses evaporated. And all that remained was truth. Silence fell. Not dramatic, not theatrical. But heavy. Powerful. Irrevocable. I stood calmly, watching him drown in his own deceptions. Every lie he had told, every betrayal, every manipulation. All exposed, undeniable, visible to everyone who mattered. And I finally whispered to myself. This is it. The ending he never saw coming. Reclaimed. The night ended. Ryan's world collapsed completely. He wasn't angry. Not even defensive. Just speechless. His power gone. His lies powerless. I walked away. Calm. Collected. Victorious, not in revenge, but in freedom. The lesson was clear. Lies may charm for a moment. Deception may manipulate hearts. But truth always finds its way. And for me, Maya, this journey taught more than exposing lies. It taught strength, clarity, patience, and resilience. It taught that observing, planning, and trusting yourself is more powerful than anger, confrontation, or chaos. Ryan's story ended with exposure. Mine? Mine is just beginning. Because no matter how many shadows come, I've learned to walk in light. And that is the final victory. The ends. Thanks for watching.